Before they ever tried to fly the B-29 Kee Bird off the surface of that Greenland glacier, they had to decide what to remove first. The 50 caliber machine guns located in the turrets on top came out easily enough. The ones underneath, however, were already destroyed, crushed by the snow and ice when the aircraft belly landed here in 1947. But decades later, during the recovery effort, it wasn't the machine guns that nearly ended the expedition. That distinction belonged to something much smaller and much easier to underestimate. It was a flare. And for a few seconds, the entire aircraft was one bad roll away from burning on the ice.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I can see the parachute.
This is the story of the objects they removed and the moment they almost lost everything.
Oh. Is that a parachute or is that just a...
Yeah, get the parachute.
History is not just what's found. It's what survives our attempts to save it.
And this big round thing is a turret. The container for the top turret. The bottom turret's been, there's one right under it also, and it's been pushed up and boogered up.
The plane had guns in it and ammunition, and it was just as they left it. I know they had 50 in all the turrets. There were guns in all the turrets. I can't recall whether or not they had the T-50s in the tail or not. The ones on the belly were bent up a little bit, 20, 30 degrees, 10 degrees off. The ones on the top front had 4 guns. The top rear had 2 guns. And those are good. They still had the yellow tag, inspection tags. They had the canvas covers that were slipped over the barrels. Obviously there was no ammo, but for some reason they didn't pull the guns out. They left them in.
Oh yeah, the 50s.
So the 50 calibers. That's another part of the conversation that's come up in a lot of the videos that I've done lately. It's like, what happened to the 50 caliber machine guns?
Me carrying my concealed weapon.
Yeah. There was another image of the Kee Bird. You could get a better view of the top turret, and the 50 cals were sticking out of the top turret.
Yeah, you can see them hovering over the turret, and behind them is the dome, the aluminum dome that covered the guns. You can see it setting on the fuselage, on the spine there. That's the big dome that covered the guns. They just took it off and temporarily set it there.
And so they're working kind of like in the turret area, correct?
Yeah, they're pulling out the 4 guns.
Okay. Now, what were you telling me the other day about the guns that were underneath the Kee Bird?
Well, those were involved in the belly landing, of course. So they were, the guns were bent and mushed up into it. And having sat in the water for 50 years, all the hardware that mounted them was completely frozen. They worked on it for quite a while. I know Vernon, one of the other guys, worked on trying to get them loosened, but they were up there for good, so we just left them. So each turret below had 2 guns. Okay. There's four turrets. The 3 of them had 2 guns, and the one on the top in front had 4 guns.
So both turrets at the bottom of the plane, those guns were all mangled, couldn't pull them out. You were trying to find ways to remove anything that wasn't necessary for weight purposes, right?
Well, probably. I mean, each one of those guns weighed, I don't know, at least 50 pounds. It was heavy. And, you know, 6 of them is going to be, what, 300, a few hundred pounds. So Yeah, we just we got them out, but I don't know if that was the main reason for weight savings because we weren't too concerned with weight, to be honest with you. I think Darryl just wanted to get them stuck in a container somewhere and get them out of the way. We left almost everything in the aircraft. Um, all the radio gear was still there. The everything originally that was there was left there. We didn't hardly take out anything, but that was all we did. We left everything in place.
If you're replacing 4 engines on this B-29 that hadn't flown in 50 years and
Yeah.
you're in this fish bowl of a valley on Greenland and the tundra's all spongy and everything, why would you sit there and say you weren't concerned about weight?
Well, a fully loaded B-29, somewhere around 140 some thousand pounds, stripped out without the bombs, without full fuel tanks, with et cetera. It was, I think, somewhere around 100,000 pounds, which for a wing that size for that aircraft, it was pretty light. Darryl knew what he was doing, and him and Rick both went over the weights involved with what was in there. The radio gear wasn't that much of a deal, maybe a few 100 pounds, maybe 300-400 pounds at the most. We took that much off in machine guns. The fuel tanks we only had maybe 1,200-1,300 gallons in each fuel tank, and it was trying to fly. When we were on the very last moment there before it caught fire, Darryl was scooting along, and he had the nose up, and he had one main gear off the ground. It was only on by one main gear. The thing was just trying to fly, so it would have floated off no problem. We just had a little bit of gas in it. So like I said, the weight was not too much of a concern. It was a big 141-foot wing. It's a big wing. And lots of flap.
If you had to guess, what happened to these guns?
Well, Darryl, I know, had put them into an old missile transport container. Looks something like a huge coffin. I don't know what kind of missiles, harpoons or sidewinders, but that was used basically as a transit case for bringing stuff up, taking stuff back. And I had heard, whether it's true or not, that they just put them in the bottom and piled a bunch of trash on top of them. Whether he got them back home, whether he gave them to the Smithsonian like he did the engines, whether he sold them to some bootlegger somewhere, I have no idea. But Darryl just says, just tell anybody we threw them in the lake, and that's all need to be said.
The Kee Bird had already survived a crash landing and 5 decades of Arctic snow, wind, and ice. What nearly destroyed it came much later. Before these 4 engines even fired. During the careful work meant to save it. Not everyone involved wanted to talk about what happened next. And that by itself says something.
Darryl's team shows up for tents that are more rated for Southern California backyard sleepovers.
Tim Wright is the world-class photographer that was there for nearly the entire expedition.
I mean, it was aluminum. It was a large family kind of tent, and the winds really just literally broke the tent.
Apparently, they celebrated Darryl's birthday up there. Were you there for that?
Yeah, I seem to recall that. Yeah, that would have been in season 2. Yes. Yeah, I remember that night.
And you recall how they celebrated?
I remember we stood around there in the clean house that we'd set up with all those clean room with all the pallets, and I think we broke out some booze and got Darryl telling SR-71 stories and stuff like that.
We had a birthday for Darryl up at the crash site. I remember that. We found a bunch of old flares and some ESP kits. So we were lighting off flares and, just had a good old time.
Do you remember anyone pulling out a flare gun?
I'd rather not go there.
A couple people mentioned that a flare gun had been pulled out. Someone fired a flare and it almost landed on the Kee Bird. No comment.
I don't want to go there.
They left all the flare guns in. I had like 4 or 5 flare guns and a box of flares. So we celebrated Darryl's birthday up there at the site. We have this brilliant idea. We're going to shoot a flare off. So we load the gun up, and it's one of these flares that shoots up, and then the parachute comes out. You know, it's a phosphorus flare. So we're happy birthday, and we shoot this flare off, and it goes up and lights off, and the parachute comes out, and it starts floating down, and it's heading for the airplane. Well, this flare came down and bounced off the left wingtip and into the snow. Had it stuck on top of the wing, it would have burned right through because it's phosphorus. But anyway, we were doing stupid shit like that.
The Kee Bird survived a crash landing, decades of Arctic weather, and 50 years of isolation on the Greenland glacier. But during the effort to recover it, and well before the disastrous inferno, a tiny flare brought the iconic World War II aircraft closer to destruction than any of us knew. You see, in places like this, history isn't just lost in battle. Sometimes it's lost in the quiet work of trying to save it.